I think I watched a good hour, then I fell asleep. And the reason I watched is I started to see everybody ripping on the Democrats because of their signs, right? And then you had Al Green standing up with his cane, and he gets booted out there. And because I try to be fair, sometimes you can just look at it like who embarrassed themselves more, right? And I think
Right.
for this speech, I think it was clearly the Democrats, right? I think Donald Trump's speech, it wasn't unifying by any means, but he hit the topics that he's good at. And again, when we talk about Donald Trump, he understands the spectacle of it all and the news cycle and storylines, right? With Laken Riley's family and the kid, and you also had what was it, the soldier or the Secret Service guy? But the other one, I was laughing, was it's not funny, but it is. But he had the girl who was there basically because she had a volleyball spiked in her face by a trans athlete, and I just again, it's not funny, but it is because the first thing I thought of was Meet the Fockers, or no, Meet the Parents, right? When they're playing volleyball, and
Yes. In the
Greg, the
water,
character
right?
played by Ben Stiller, he won't spike the ball, and they're like, and then he finally does. He reaches up and he just destroys the ball, and it goes right off that woman's face. And I think it was her wedding weekend, right? I think it ruined her nose or whatever.
Yes.
So anyway,
And they're like, come
that's
on,
not funny,
Fokker.
right? Right, right. No, it is funny, but it's just Donald Trump does a good job of kind of hitting on storylines, knowing what's going to play on social media. All of that stuff plays really well on social media. And then also, I just thought the Democrats did look silly. I thought they looked stupid. And I know in the past, look, you had Nancy Pelosi, she ripped up the speech. You had whoever the hell called Obama a liar years ago. You always have Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene chirping. They're always embarrassing themselves too, right? When it's the other side during Biden. But I just thought collectively for the Democrats, I thought the little hand paddles like they were at a live auction, I thought those were stupid. I thought, again, the old guy, Al Green, however old he is, he's got to be 80, right? It's just the Democrats, they need new leadership. They need fresh, younger,
Yeah.
Midwestern, to get these swing states. And I feel like when the leaders of your party are Chuck Schumer's got to be 80, whatever. Nancy Pelosi's 80, whatever she is. This Al Green,
She's
who
80,
I had
yeah,
heard of,
84,
but
I
like
think.
now he's right. He's standing up like with his cane. He looks like Mr. Burns, whatever it is. I just thought it was a terrible look. And I think the Democrats embarrassed themselves
They
at
did.
the congressional address. And right there, Eric, that's why I'm not a grifter and a glazer, because I can admit that.
Yes, or what did you say earlier? A dick rider, which I had not heard that
Dick
one
Rider,
before.
yes. Yes. I like that the best,
I've heard it
actually.
in a different context, but I think
Right.
that
Well, it's that context. It's that analogy.
right. We I think we get it. The thing I agree with you. I just kind of rip Trump on the terrace. Let me start by praising Trump, and then I'm going to rip the Democrats. So what do I like about Trump? If you said, okay, give me the positives of these first 6 or 7 weeks. Let's start with this. He is available and accessible all the time,
Yes.
basically every day, taking questions. And yes, some of those questions are from weird right-wing websites that they've let into the press room, but not all of them. Some of them are from ABC and CNN, and he's taking the questions. He's giving you access. He's letting you into the cabinet room for 2 hours. He's having a weird Oval Office thing where Elon Musk has one of his 15 kids on his shoulders running around picking his nose. He's letting you in where he and Vance are berating Zelensky in the Oval Office. He's letting you in with Macron where they're sitting there for 50 minutes and Macron is like gently correcting him when Trump says something that is false. Give Trump credit for this access. Like, this is great that we are in the White House every day hearing from the president, even if some of the stuff he says is untrue or, conspiracy theories. Put that aside. He's giving you the access. And also, as you said, Trump's great strength is what it's always been throughout his whole life: public relations, self-promotion, marketing. And the State of the Union, you saw that to a T. They hit all the buttons, the emotion. Laken Riley, her family, the college student who was killed by an illegal immigrant last year. You had that 13-year-old cancer survivor who was deputized as a Secret Service agent, hitting the right notes with the style, right? The substance is a different story. We can talk about that in a minute. But the style, the presentation. Then you had the Democrats. What did they do? Okay, you're the minority party during one of these events. We've all seen these congressional addresses, State of the Unions. You can't really do much, right? You're not talking. The president is talking, right? But what did the Democrats do? Al Green, who was censured today, rightfully so by the House, embarrasses himself, standing up and screaming like a child, had to be removed from the House. Then, as I mentioned, that 13-year-old boy, this was the biggest example, but there were others. They didn't, by and large, stand to cheer that 13-year-old boy. That is just shameful, but it's also incredibly stupid politics.
Yeah.
Just because you hate Donald Trump or you disagree with his policies, you think he shouldn't be the president, whatever. He's talking about a 13-year-old boy who survived brain cancer, had 5 months to live and is still living. God bless him. And you can't get off your ass to clap for that. That makes you look so petty. It goes back to what we were saying before. It makes you look like you are so tribalistic, so filled with hate for Trump that you can't stand up and just show some human decency. That was shameful for the Democrats. And then there was something that was a lot less shameful, but was equally stupid or somewhat stupid, which was the signs, like the little signs that said liar or whatever they said. The only one I liked was the congresswoman from New Mexico. Musk steals. The only one I liked was the congresswoman, I think from New Mexico, who when Trump walked in, she stood in the aisle behind him with a sign that said, "This is not normal." And then a Republican congressman ripped that out of her hands. That's the one I liked. The rest of them, again, it makes you look like children. It makes you look, it diminishes your stature. You are the opposition party, okay, in the greatest democracy known to human history. Stand up and act like it. You have some dignity and decorum. You don't have to like him. You don't have to cheer for the weird things he says, the lies he tells, the policies you don't like. Fine. But the Democrats did not do well there. And I think it goes to a larger point. Their base is so angry and so mad about Trump, about the actions he's taken. And they are putting so much pressure on these Democrats to quote unquote do something. You know when you had a chance to do something? Last November. And you didn't do it. And some of you didn't do it because Kamala Harris wasn't pure enough on the Israel issue or whatever issue you may like. Right? And so that you had a chance to do something, you didn't do it. And you'll have a chance again in 2026 and 2028 at the ballot box. Until then, you know what you do is you shut up. You shut the fuck up. And James Carville is so right on this because Donald Trump is still the same guy. He is in some ways a little better. He's learned some lessons. He's got some smarter people around him now. They're much more focused than they were in the first term. It's still chaotic, but it's less chaotic. But he's still the same guy. The style of his speech was pretty good. The substance, I mean, I have never heard a president give an address to Congress that was that nasty, that partisan, that filled with dishonesty. If you read the fact check, it's as long as, a city block. He's the same guy. Many of his policies are unpopular. We talked about what's happening in the stock market. We talked about these tariffs. You talk about the budget that may cut Medicaid by potentially tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. Tax cuts that mainly benefit the rich. These things are not popular. And on the same day he gave that State of the Union where Democrats embarrassed themselves, his net approval rating on 538, which sadly is now defunct because ABC shut it down, went net negative for the first time. He had a net negative approval rating from the time he was inaugurated up until Monday. And it's dipped net negative. It's essentially even now. He's essentially at 49. His approval rating has slid. History shows us that in almost every presidential administration, your approval rating declines as the first year goes on, in some cases dramatically. Because of course it does. You start doing things that are unpopular and the other side gets organized. You look at these town halls around the country where Democrats are showing up and shouting at these Republican members of Congress, sometimes in deep red districts. There are protests organically springing up all over the country. And sure, some of them are funded by outside groups. We get it, but that's always going to be there. The point is, he is less popular than he was on election day when he wasn't very popular to begin with. You just have to not embarrass yourself as the Democrats. Push back on the policies you disagree with, fight in the courts as they are doing, fight in Congress when you can, but don't take the bait of going over the top. And so now the focus of that State of the Union wasn't on some of the nasty stuff Trump said about Biden and the way he was so political and divisive. It wasn't on the numerous, let's say, misstatements he had during the presentation. It wasn't on some of his unpopular policies. It was on Al Green and his cane, on the Democrats and their weird signs, not standing to applaud a 13-year-old boy. It's hard because these politicians are incredibly ambitious people. They are almost by definition incredibly partisan people. That's why they're there, right? Because they really care about these things to an extreme degree. And the base, the people that really support them, are just as fervent as they are. And so the incentive is to, quote unquote, do something. But do something is not a strategy. Do something for what end? To what end? Like, we can do all kinds of things. That doesn't mean they're good or productive. And what the Democrats did that night, in the long run, is probably not going to matter. But the news cycle moves so fast, and so many other things are going to happen, that the Democrats are going to benefit just from being the opposition. But it makes you look back. Remember 2009? Like, we have had close elections, very close elections historically, since 2000 in every election except for one, 2008. That was the only blowout we've seen in the last quarter century. You had a Republican president, George W. Bush, whose numbers were in the tank. Obama cruises to re-election. Huge majorities in the House. He had 60 votes in the Senate. It was a landslide election for Obama. The Republican Party, their reputation was in the toilet. And what happened? Within a year, Obama's approval rating sank. The Tea Party was formed. The Democrats lost a Senate election in Massachusetts after Ted Kennedy died. And then the next year, Republicans won a landslide in Congress and took back the House. It changes fast. And if you're the Democrats, the train is coming down the track most likely for you, right? Don't derail it by doing stupid shit.